Hello and welcome back to the 8th slide, or possibly the 7th video. But we're going over fat now. So fat to eat. You want to be eating more saturated and monounsaturated fats, and DHA and EPA. DHA and EPA are part of the omega-3 family. We'll go more into that here pretty soon. But you want to try and limit more of the polyunsaturated. These are higher in omega-6s. Okay, omega-6s and omega-3s need to be in a correct balance. Studies have shown anywhere from a 1-to-1 omega-3 to omega-6 or a 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. But the problem with the standard American diet, high carb, low fat, low cholesterol, is omega-6 to omega-3 could be as high as 30-to-1. And when omega-6s go too high, that creates a lot of inflammation in the body. So if you remember, inflammation opens you up to everything. Omega-6s, if you're taking in vegetable oils, so canola oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, cottonseed oil, those kind of vegetable kinds of oils, those are going to be probably the worst things that you can consume, because when you buy them, they're already rancid on the shelf, and then you go home, you heat them up, they become even more rancid, they create more inflammation in the body, they create more AGEs, advanced glycating end products, and all kinds of other bad things. So throw it out if you're using it now. There's no nutritional benefit. It's probably the worst thing, and it's very, very bad for visceral fat as well. Nuts and seeds are going to be a better source of polyunsaturated and also monounsaturated fats. So trans fats is another thing that you want to avoid. There's two types of trans fats, and I wish they would use different names for them, but so it does get confusing if you don't know what you're looking at. But trans fats, man-made trans fats, is the ones we want to avoid. So if you always be looking at the ingredients, if you're buying something in a package, but you want to limit the amount of packaged foods because those are refined carbohydrates, and those are the worst type of carbohydrates. But on the ingredients list, it's going to say either hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oils. Any of those, if that is on the ingredient list, that means there is trans fats in it. They did a thing where the food companies can put 0 trans fats on a package if it has less than 0.5 grams per serving of trans fats. So when that happened, once the companies heard that, they started lowering the serving size so they can get under that 0.5 servings of trans fats. But the recommended amount of trans fats per day from man-made trans fats is 0%. So there is nothing good about trans fats. They will destroy your health. All the bad things, triglycerides raised, inflammation goes up, advanced glycating end products, and you feel like crap eating trans fats. Now there is something that is man-made trans fats. These fats are good for you. These are the kinds of fats that are going to be found in things like grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, different types of grass-fed animal products. Okay, so if you see trans fats on a package of grass-fed meat, that is a natural trans fat, and it's okay to eat. So I know that can get confusing, but it's pretty much just in grass-fed and pasture-raised animals. So fat is your friend. Saturated fat, going back to that, saturated fat is the most important fat. Okay, it helps regulate inflammation, especially in your brain and gut. It is your preferred fuel source over glucose, and it's the preferred energy source for your heart. Say, no study has ever linked saturated fat to coronary heart disease. So it was all just a guess or a hypothesis. Again, Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes goes over all this, but Ansel Keys, a man who I refer to as the Hitler of nutrition, and he's the reason we fear fat to this day. He basically came up with a 7 countries study where he plotted 7 different countries, and the increased amount of saturated fat led to increased rate of heart disease. But what he didn't do, there was like 22 other countries he didn't plot. He just cherry-picked the countries that showed what he wanted to show. The other 22 countries would basically be all over the map, and there was no correlation. There was other factors, stress, exercise, where they lived, all that stuff that was influencing that. Okay. Saturated fat also puts calcium in the bones and not the arteries. Okay. If you eat a lot of carbohydrates, you're going to be forcing calcium into the arteries, which will lead to a calcification of the arteries. Okay. Plus, eating a lot of carbohydrates will pull calcium out of the bone, which will increase your chances of osteoporosis, especially ladies later in life. Saturated fat raises your good HDL cholesterol, and cholesterol we'll get into the next video. And it also raises the good LDL, and it lowers the bad LDL. It's going to lower your triglycerides. Again, triglycerides, independent risk factor for every single disease you never want to get. Okay. Sources of saturated fat, you have grass-fed meats, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, palm oil, egg yolks, ghee, bacon, most meats. I have a list of good fats in the Look Better Naked Nutrition Blueprint, so make sure to download that once it becomes available to you. Okay. Again, bad fats, vegetable oils, omega-6s, visceral fat, and that is it on fat. Fat is your friend. Fat is going to be the best thing to absolutely control your blood sugar levels and control your insulin levels. All right. Carbohydrates release blood sugar, which releases insulin. Fat keeps them nice and steady. So carbohydrates, you want to limit your carbohydrates. The biggest source of your carbohydrates, if you want to burn the most fat all day long, you want to limit to vegetables, and preferably fibrous vegetables. Green ones are going to be your best because they're going to have the most phytonutrients, enzymes, micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, all that good stuff. But we'll talk about vegetables and fruits here in a little bit. So that's it for fat. I'll see you on the next video. Stay strong.